I'm Charlotte Kirby, and I'm joining you today from the Village Hive Coworking space in Markham. So we're located in Markham Village, and joining me today is Mitch, who is Mitch Reiss, who's our community manager at our Eglinton Hive at Yonge and Eglinton in Toronto. So we're really excited to share with you today. Both of us are very passionate about community building, and I think Tammy's doing an amazing job with GTApreneurs here, and even just starting the 15 minutes early and connecting. I think it's so important. So Mitch and I are going to just share with you our experience and how we are passionate about community and how we do that through the 3 C's of connection, cooperation, and collaboration. So we'll be giving you some tips and tricks on how to build your own community, or how to make the communities that you're already involved in more authentic and more rich. So, the need for community these days, I'm sure everybody realizes, is so important after over a year in lockdown and dealing with this pandemic. I think there's been many people who have, yes, we're joining on Zoom, which is great, but it's been very isolating despite the technology that we do have to connect. And so community is more important than ever. And I mean, it's always been passionate even before the pandemic, but even more so now. And now that we're coming out of it, we can actually start to build our communities even richer and hopefully see each other in person again. So I'm going to start just with a very short story of how I started my business. And so back in 2015, I was working in the corporate world, and I've always had really great jobs. I've been very lucky that way, great on paper, but always feeling like I've been missing something. And so back in 2015, I'm very passionate about TEDx talks, TED Talks. So I was watching a TED Talk, which was called Draw Your Future. And I can't think of the speaker, but I will put it in the chat group because I do have the link to share. So it was Draw Your Future. And it was after I realized I needed to make a difference. So basically, a long story short, we were to draw a picture of our current self, our current state, and then draw a picture of our desired state. So I grabbed a pen or a marker, and I still have the picture, and I should have brought it today, but the picture I drew was of me in a circle by myself and a bunch of other people in circles, and then somebody over top of me yelling. So just like exclamation marks, angry face. And my desired state was me surrounded by other people, holding hands, lots of hearts, and that feeling of community. And so then I realized I am missing something. Although I had a good job, I was really missing that community connection. So I decided to quit my job. And what inspired me was that TED Talk, a trip down to Toronto to a co-working space, and an old schoolhouse in Markham Village. And so those 3 things really drove me to where I am now. And I decided to embark on that desired state of adventure. So fast forward to 2021 to today, we now have 3 locations, 3 co-working spaces. The Village Hive has 3 co-working locations in Markham, North York, and at Eglinton. So I can definitely, when I look back at that TED Talk and that picture of me surrounded by people, I truly feel like I've reached that desired state. So the long version of that story, which I'd love to tell somebody sometime, maybe over a lemonade or a beer or a glass of wine, involves my trip to South Korea, a photograph of a Buddha, and some medication gone wrong. And it's a quite interesting story, but I just thought I'd give you the short version today. So what does this have to do with community, you're wondering? Well, a co-working space, if you've ever visited one before, or you're part of a co-working space, you'll know that co-working in itself is community. It's community building. So yes, it's a space for entrepreneurs and remote workers to connect and collaborate, coexist, cooperate, and share. So it's a workplace where people can work together with flexible options such as workstations, or we call them flex desks or hot desks, dedicated desks, meeting rooms, private offices, podcast rooms, mail plans, and more things to help you grow your business. So it is much more, co-working is much more. And the reason I got into co-working is I realized it's much more than just a workspace. It's a place for people to come to gather. And we know what happens when people, that's where the magic happens. So back in January, I met Mitch, and so happy that he joined us. And I knew right from after talking to him for about 10 minutes that he was the right person for the job, because the job was for a community manager at our Eglinton space. And right away, he talked about community. And yes, that was in the job description, but he realized that this is what the job was about. It was about being at our space and making sure that everybody felt welcome and that people got to meet each other, and that he was kind of the glue to the space. And we're just opening now because of the pandemic, but I still getting to know Mitch over the last, I guess, 4 or 5 months has been, I know that he's been the perfect person. He's the perfect person for this role. So without further ado, I'm going to let Mitch introduce himself.
Yeah, so again, Charlotte said, I've been here many times. My name is Mitch. Yeah, my journey was a little unorthodox, a little unusual for a lot of people in this role, but sales has always been a passion of mine, work-wise and in community from a young age. Always engaged in a community, always found a community, always built community, always found myself in a leadership role of a community, but I spiraled down that whole sales realm, you know, selling from one thing to another, from selling alcoholic beverages to selling credit cards, was stuck in that for about 3.5 years. And then I realized during the pandemic, I need more out of life. So I decided to take a break from work. I was scrolling on Facebook and I found Charlotte's post for the Eglinton Hive, and like gave it a shot, right? Like they're looking for someone part-time. I'm like, you know what? This is something I really want to do. So I jumped. We booked a meeting. After, again, like Charlotte said, after 5 minutes of the phone call, I knew, okay, cool. This is something I want to pursue. Then after the meeting with Charlotte and the other partner in the space, I was hooked. And luckily, so are they. So like the journey of all my community experience, all my community engagement, working with people, building communities, all of that, and combining with the sales, I've really fallen in love with co-working, fallen in love with my space. And most importantly, this is where I want to be. This is my future. And I'm so excited to be able to continue to build such a holistic, such an intentional, such a purposeful community along with Charlotte and the rest of the Village Hive team. So I'll pass it back to Charlotte to get the introduction to the 3 C's, and I look forward to networking later, and I have got something more things to say as well.
Thanks, Mitch. So yes, the 3 C's for building authentic communities. So we're going to be talking about connection, cooperation, and collaboration. So first, I thought I'd give some examples of how we connect at our co-working space. And maybe it will give you some ideas of how you can, in your network of people, connect maybe on a more authentic and personal level. So as we all know, putting good food on the table with loved ones is probably still perhaps the most universal source of happiness. We all love food. And sitting at a table with loved ones gives us a chance to, just disconnect with what's going on around you and really be focused, be present. So what we did right from the beginning at the Village Hive, so we opened in 2016, and the very first Thursday I was open, there may have only been 2 of us, but we had networking lunches, and Tammy's been part of those as well. We had networking lunches every Thursday up until the pandemic. And then we did them virtual for a little while. It wasn't quite the same, but it was such a great opportunity to get people together. So, and just talk about themselves. Yes, we talked about business, but and we're going to be talking about ourselves today and business. But if you want to, put in the chat what you're eating for lunch today, if you're eating lunch, or your favorite lunch spot to go, because I'd love for everybody to share that if you'd like to share that in the chat. Again, it's getting to know each other. So our networking lunches were really really important part of our connecting. Another thing we did was a book club, which was great too. So again, we all got to share our love of books, and each person chose a different book each month, and we focused mostly on wellness and business. So it wasn't fictional books, and that was a really great way to connect too. So think about that. That could be something that you could do with your professional network too, because it's amazing what happens when you just get to know each other better just over talking about books and food. And getting to know your customers or clients. This is something I actually learned from my dad in real estate. And he always had a book with him. And when he met clients, instead of finding out, what type of house they're looking for, where they're looking for, he found out, like, what are your kids' names? What's your dog's names? And then he brought that up in conversation every time after that, and would even call people on special occasions, that if he knew their anniversary or something like that. And so I brought that to my co-working business, because we like to get to know our members before we even really, yes, we know they're coming to us for space, but we want to know what they do. What is their job? Not just what their job is, but what their interests are. Because say you're a hiker, or you're a bicycle or cyclist, then you're like, oh, we've got a member who does the same thing. Or, it's just so amazing how the more connections that you can make when you get to know somebody personally. So when we do an orientation for a new member, we sit down and we, of course, show them all the different parts of the space and how to get in after hours and all that. But the most important part is just to find out, what are their kids' names, and get to know them a little bit better. And then another quick thing on connecting on Zoom calls, something a friend of mine, or a colleague of mine, Tony Bacigalupo in New York City, he's part of our whole co-working collective. When we first started doing a lot of Zoom calls at the beginning of the pandemic, he would tell people to bring their favorite mug and hold up their favorite mug if they were drinking coffee, if it was a morning meeting, and just tell people, why is that your favorite mug? Where did it come from? And so everybody had this little story to tell about their favorite mug, or maybe they would bring their dog or their child into the Zoom call. So again, it's getting to know people authentically. So those are just a couple examples of what we do for connections. And Mitch is going to talk about the second C, cooperation.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like a lot of these things you're going to see sound very similar, but the cooperation that I'm focusing on is largely unlikely partnerships. So why? It's more of like being together. What can you do to help each other? So largely the idea that I'm revolving around, the concept behind this was, let's say you have two financial advisors in a room, and like, we're competitors. We don't want to deal together, and then you just shut off. The whole idea is being open-minded, talking to each other, trying to figure out what is your specialty? What do you actually do? Maybe you're an accountant that doesn't like doing taxes. Maybe you're an accountant that's not good at this, so you focus on people in retirement. It's all about opening your mind, and how can you cooperate to help each other? How can you truly work together to help both of you succeed? Even if at face value, you either don't think you have anything to help each other, or you think you're a competitor. Truthfully, you never know. You could have some way to work together, some way to help the other person really grow and succeed. Because ultimately, any community, specifically our communities, is about helping each other grow and succeed in life and in business and in all aspects. So I'll pass it back to Charlotte for the last one, and then yeah.
So collaborations, actually, this is where I am most passionate about, the collaboration that actually can happen in a group like the GTApreneurs and in a co-working space, because you really get to know people. And of course, you're not just going to jump in and collaborate and do business with somebody you don't know, but the more time you spend together, the more you get to know each other and trust each other and have faith in each other. And an example of some amazing collaborations that have happened at our space in Markham is between Danny, who's our photographer, and Heather, who's an interior designer. And they have, wow, they've rocked this partnership. So they do incredible photo shoots together. So Heather is the designer behind the photo shoots, or if you're doing a branding shoot, she will put everything together, and Danny brings her magic photography in there. So that's been a great collaboration. And then we've had other collaborations between an HR consultant and another interior designer. And I just love seeing these collaborations, or they warm my heart. They are the honey in the hive. So that's just a couple examples of collaborations that can happen when you join a community like that. And I'm going to pass it back over to Mitch.
Yeah, so I mean, that was, as you can tell, even just seeing the chat that's going on right now, you can just see the energy that's coming up the second you mention food, right? So this leads me to kind of like the last wrap up of the session. Is kind of almost like a little bit of it's a wrap up of what's going on. It's kind of like finishing things up, bringing it all together. But I have a challenge for you today and every other networking event that you do in the next little bit. And it's truly focused around, one second. So it's truly focused around the conversation, the nature of the conversation, what you think when you go into it. It's all about keeping your mind open when going into the meeting, going into the conversation. It's being open-minded. It's thinking, okay, maybe I don't want to talk to this person. I see them every event. But if you do, think of this. Talk about something other than work. If you have a one-on-one meeting, talk about your favorite food. As you can tell, all of us got so excited about that. Talk about what do you do in your spare time. You never know. You may get someone to share recipes with, or you may get someone, a new tennis buddy, a new golf buddy. You never know. All of these things, all the things that we've mentioned, and all these other aspects is how you really build authentic community. People who want to meet for a reason and who truly, truly, truly want to connect for a true and meaningful reason. So again, our time is coming to an end. So as I finish off, I just want to give you all an invitation and kind of like talking about our slogan. And it's all about, you come for the space, but you stay for the community, right? What it's all about. It's coming, you come here just to see us, you come here to connect, you come here for a place to work, but you truly stay because we're a place to grow, a place to develop, a place to foster. Anyways, come book your free tour, free co-working day, any of our 3 locations, North York, Markham, or Eglinton, and I'm going to post something in the chat just so you can connect to all 3 of our locations. And thank you all very much for your time, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you in the individual networking chats.